Welcome to the third and final episode of our Costa Rican series. In this video, we show the birds we encountered below 500 meters, 1,500 feet. Be sure to watch episode 1, Birds of the Highlands, and episode 2, Birds of the Foothills, if you missed them. Located along the Caribbean coast, near the border with Panama, the areas of Puerto Viejo de Telemacán and nearby Manzanillo are a good introduction to tropical lowland birding. Both locations have beautiful beaches for non-birding spouses. With its large rainbow-colored bill, the unmistakable keel-billed toucan is fairly common in forests and semi-open areas. Unfortunately, this spectacular bird is listed as near threatened due to habitat loss and trapping for the pet trade. The groove-billed Ani is a bizarre-looking coal-black cuckoo with a long floppy tail. At close range, it is possible to see the grooved striations on its beak. It is common and widespread in scrubby fields and gardens. The pale-vented pigeon is common in wet lowlands, such as marshy savannas and riversides. It also frequents towns with large scattered trees. The black-cheeked woodpecker is common along the Caribbean slope in humid forest edges and gardens. The boldly marked black-striped woodcreeper is uncommon in mature wet forests and forest edges. Woodcreepers and woodpeckers have long stiffened tail feathers that aid in climbing tree trunks. The less distinctly marked cocoa woodcreeper is common in forest edges, second growth, and gardens. Unlike most other woodcreepers that have a long curved bill, the tiny bill of the wedge-billed woodcreeper easily separates this bird from other similar-looking species. It is common in mature humid forests and second growth. The great antshrike may look obvious, but is typically hard to see as it forages in dense tangles and thickets along the forest edges. The male is shown. The female has reddish-brown upper parts. The rather plain-looking cinnamon picard is common in forest edges and clearings in humid tropical lowlands. The masked tatar is common and widespread in forest edges and gardens with fruit trees. The tiny and distinctive common toady flycatcher has a long and rather broad bill. It is common in open and semi-open areas with scattered trees, bushes, and shrub. The black-striped sparrow is common in tangles and thickets, usually at forest edge or in shrubby second growth. The chestnut-headed or pendula is fairly uncommon along the Caribbean slope in forests and forest edges. The common and widespread blue-gray tanager inhabits gardens and open and semi-open areas with large trees. The male tawny-crested tanager is an all-black tanager with a conspicuous orangey crest. The inconspicuous female has a brownish plumage. In Costa Rica, This species inhabits lowland and foothill forests along the Caribbean slope. Although typically difficult to see well, the chestnut-backed antbird is a distinct bird with bare blue orbital skin surrounding its eye. It can be found close to the ground in the understory of mature wet forests. Located along the northeastern Caribbean coast, the Tortuguero National Park is an area of exceptional biodiversity. There are no roads to Tortuguero, so visitors must arrange for a boat or a small plane to get there. The sun grebe is fairly common at Tortuguero, along the slow-moving rivers and streams, with abundant shade and vegetation. Unlike grebes, it does not dive underwater. The spectacular and rarely seen Agamai heron is much sought after by birders visiting the tropics. This reclusive and very uncommon heron can be found along secluded forest streams and occasionally in mangroves. The large white-necked puffbird is widespread and fairly uncommon at forest edges and open areas with scattered trees. The large boat-billed flycatcher is fairly common and widespread in gardens and forest edges. Moving towards the Pacific coast, we stopped at Cano Negro area of the northern Costa Rica. The green-breasted mango is a fairly large hummingbird that is fairly common in forest edges, gardens, and mangroves. This hummingbird is a rare stray to the United States, to as far north as Wisconsin. The olivaceous picolet is a tiny woodpecker. In the Cano Negro region, it typically favors forest openings and second growth. The white-lored gnatcatcher is fairly common in tropical dry forest and scrub along the Pacific slope of the Guanacaste region of the Northwest and Cano Negro. In Costa Rica, the fairly common spot-breasted wren is restricted to the lowland thickets of the Cano Negro region. Located in the Guanacaste province of northwest Costa Rica, the Santa Rosa National Park protects a large tract of tropical dry forests. More often heard than seen, tinamus are difficult birds to observe. We were fortunate in finding this fairly common and secretive thicket tinamu foraging on the forest floor. The odd-looking, double-striped thick-knee is fairly common shorebird of dry grasslands and savannas, mainly in northwestern Costa Rica. It is most active at night, hence its large yellow eyes. The crested bobwhite inhabits grasslands and brushy fields. It can often be found along quiet roadsides, perched prominently on top of fence posts early and late in the day. The large and distinctive crested caracara is common and widespread in open areas such as scrubby lowlands and agricultural areas. The fairly small, white-fronted parrot is very common in dry forests and semi-open areas with scattered trees in northwestern Costa Rica. Also mainly restricted to the northwest region, the orange-fronted parakeet is fairly common in forests, agricultural areas, and mangroves. The unmistakable turquoise-browed motmot is common in dry tropical forests and forest edges of northwestern Costa Rica. The black-headed trogon is common in dry forests and semi-open areas with tall trees, mainly in the northwestern region of Costa Rica. The large red-headed pale-billed woodpecker is common in tropical forests along both the Pacific and Caribbean slopes. The uniformly rufous ruddy woodcreeper is fairly common in humid and dry tropical forests. The royal flycatcher is uncommon in forests and forest edges, especially along stream beds. This bird rarely raises its crest. The rufous-naped wren is very common in dry thorn forests and scrubby habitats, mainly in the Guanacaste province of the northwestern Costa Rica. On our way south along the Pacific coast, we made a quick stop at the coastal town of Tortuguero for the unmistakable and spectacular scarlet macaw. Tortuguero is one of the best locations in Costa Rica to view these huge, noisy birds. We also briefly stopped at Marina Ballena National Park to see the tiny American pygmy kingfisher, which is uncommon along shaded forest streams and mangroves. Our final stop along the Pacific coast was the vast and remote Osa Peninsula of southwestern Costa Rica. The charming hummingbird is endemic to the Pacific lowlands of Costa Rica and western Panama. It is uncommon at lower and middle edges of forests. The band-tailed barbed throat is a fairly common hummingbird of humid evergreen forest and forest edges. Its long dark bill is yellowish below. The gray-cowled wood rail is common and widespread in wet forests, freshwater marshes, damp woodlands, and occasionally mangroves. The bare-throated tiger heron is fairly common in mangroves and freshwater marshes. A bare-throated tiger heron made headline news in 2009 when the first U.S. record of an individual was found at the Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park in Texas. The bizarre-looking boat-billed heron is a fairly common nocturnal bird that lives in mangrove swamps. It looks somewhat similar to the black-crowned night heron, but has a huge, wide bill. The roadside hawk is widespread and fairly common in woodlands and open areas with scattered trees. The barred trogon is common in mature wet forests. It is a target bird for birders as it is endemic only to southwestern Costa Rica and western Panama. The red-rumped woodpecker inhabits lowland forests, second growth, and mangroves. It is considered rare in Costa Rica due to it being at the northern edge of its distribution. The yellow-headed caracara is a rather sluggish scavenger that can be found in open habitats, such as fields and river edges. Due to deforestation, recent sightings have been reported for Guatemala and Nicaragua. Its range appears to be expanding northwards towards Mexico. The orange-chinned parakeet is common and widespread in forest edges and open country with tall trees. It can also be found in towns and villages. The distinctive dot-winged ant wren typically forages a dense understory of humid forests. In Costa Rica, it is common along the southern Pacific slope and uncommon along the Caribbean slope. The male is shown. The female is slaty gray above and rich rusty below. The orange collared manakin is endemic to mature wet forests, second growth, and forest edges along the Pacific slope of Costa Rica and western Panama. The distinctive red-capped manakin is common in mature wet forests and second growth woodlands. The southern rough-winged swallow is very common in open areas, especially near water. Its pale rump identifies this species from the very similar northern rough-winged swallow. The ruddy-breasted seed-eater is fairly common in grassy and weedy fields, including marshes. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Be sure not to miss our next episode of Adven Nature by hitting the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, we sincerely thank you.